I'm going to give you your first goal in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Your long-term goal, as we said, is to become an offensively strong player who can play good, positive, attacking Jiu-Jitsu. But your first goal along the long-term path to that final goal is this. I want you to become unpinnable amongst your peers. That's your first goal. If you truly believe you can't be pinned, no one can ever hold you down in a position of disadvantage. Whatever offense you have, you'll use it. You'll take risks because you always feel at the end of the day, if the risk doesn't go in your favor, you can always get out and you can start again. But if you don't believe that, if you feel every pin is final and you'll never get away from a pin once you're in it, you'll never pull triggers in your offensive skills. And so your first goal as a beginning athlete in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu is always to become unpinnable amongst your peers. When I say your peers, I mean people in your class of similar belt level and similar size. It's unrealistic to expect you in your opening years of Jiu-Jitsu to become unpinnable by a world champion black belt. However, among your peers, take pride in your defense. I want you, after some period of time, to become unpinnable amongst your peers. That's your first goal. Let's talk about the notion of escaping from a pin in Jiu-Jitsu. Before I begin, let's quickly ascertain what is a pin in Jiu-Jitsu, because it's a little different than most combat sports. If we have a training partner lying down on his back facing me, legs up. In the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, no top position is considered a pin until I pass my training partner's legs. So, for example, my opponent is currently on his back. Okay, if we were engaged in the sport of wrestling, my opponent would be losing the fight rapidly at this point. In fact, the fight may even be over already if under certain rule sets. However, this scores nothing in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. It's neutral. And some combat sports this is true too, and judo too. So nothing is going to happen in terms of pins until we start to clear our training partner's legs. Okay. From any situation where I form angle on my training partner and start to clear out my training partner's legs, and we get across our opponent's side into a chest-to-chest position, whether I be side, whether I be knee on belly, or whether I be mounted, or north-south, or any other variation. One thing they all have in common is I cleared my training partner's legs. Once you clear the barrier of your training partner's legs, pinning starts to happen. And typically there has to be some kind of hip-to-hip or chest-to-chest contact to solidify it, or at the very minimum, knee on stomach, etc., etc. But what these all have in common is the idea that I cleared my training partner's legs. Now, that's what differentiates Jiu-Jitsu pins from, say, wrestling pins. But what about, say, for example, the sport of judo or sambo, where you can clear your opponent's legs, and aren't their pins exactly the same as ours? Well, they're similar, because in judo also you have to clear your opponent's legs before something counts as a pin. But there's one other very significant difference between Jiu-Jitsu and other combat sports. If we have someone in a turtle position, like so, let's come back this way. From a situation like this, if I'm able to get two of my legs around and over my training partner's torso, this scores points, actually the maximum points. In the sport of wrestling and the sport of judo, this scores 0 points. This is a significant difference between Jiu-Jitsu and other jacketed forms of grappling. Thank you. Jiu-Jitsu is almost alone among the various combat sports insofar as it allows chest-to-back pins. You can score points being behind people. In the sport of wrestling, throwing legs into your opponent's hips, it's a good thing, there's things you can do out of it, but it doesn't score anything, not until you put your opponent's back on the floor. In judo too, if you put hooks in on your opponent, it scores nothing. You can do good things from there, you can strangle them, you can do other things, but you're not going to score points with it. Jiu-Jitsu is unique in its approach to pinning in several important ways. The first is not unique, but it's an important part of it, is the idea that you must always clear your opponent's legs and have their back on the floor before you begin to be counted as pinning your opponent. Being inside your legs counts for nothing. At the same time, it's the only combat sport that I'm aware of which rewards people for chest to back pins. Provided I get my hooks in on my opponent's legs, I can score points. You won't see that in judo, you won't see that in wrestling. So our understanding of pinning can be explained very clearly right from the start. We've got to do several things. We've got to either clear our opponent's legs and get some kind of physical contact with his upper body, knee on belly, chest to chest, hips over hips, etc., etc. Or alternatively, we've got to get two hooks in from behind our opponent. If we can do those things, you're pinning your opponent and you're scoring points, you're winning the match. So you see, Jiu-Jitsu has a very different approach to pinning from other combat sports. Understanding that approach is a big part of what will motivate the way in which we teach our escape series later on in this video. Let's understand something right from the start. In Jiu-Jitsu, escape is your responsibility. You don't get rewarded for it. There are many grappling styles where an escape is rewarded with points. You get out of a bad situation, you get rewarded. Not so in Jiu-Jitsu. You're simply expected to get out of bad positions. The onus is on you. That is a part of the sport I've always admired. The assumption here is that escape and defense is so fundamental to the sport that it's something you just damn well take for granted. You don't get a reward. The same way in athletic competition, you don't get rewarded for showing up. You get rewarded for winning. So too in Jiu-Jitsu, you don't get rewarded for escape. That's just straightforwardly expected from you. It's such a foundational skill. It's taken for granted. That mindset I've always admired, and that must be your mindset too. You must be strong and proud of your escapes. Don't see it as something you've done, which it's a good thing. Rather, it's something which is expected of you. Have that mindset, and you'll go a long way with your escapes. Now, let's understand something. There are three modes of escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Let's say, for example, I'm in turtle position and my training partner is behind me. One mode of escape in these kinds of situations might be an escape to a neutral position. Okay, so for example, if I stood up on my training partner in situations like this and turned and faced them in a neutral situation, I've escaped from a given position of disadvantage. My opponent was on my back and I stood up and I got back to neutral. So that would be one form of escape. A second form of escape might occur where we get what we call a complete reversal. Okay, say for example, bottom mounted position, my opponent's mounted, and however we've contrived it, we've trapped our training partner's sleeve on one side, foot on the other, and then from here we hit a complete reversal and we switch from top position to bottom, from bottom position to top position. This act of going from bottom to top is a form of reversal and counts as an escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. So far we've got two forms of escape, two modes of escape. The first might be an escape from a position of disadvantage back up to a neutral standing situation, or even neutral down on the knees. Just as long as there's a break of contact between the two athletes, it would count as an escape. The second will be some kind of complete reversal. We could do it from bottom mount position, as we just saw. It might even be from side control situations where someone had arms in place like so. If I push into my training partner and I feel him pushing back, under these circumstances, this too would count as a form of escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. Anything where we go from bottom position to top would count as some kind of a significant escape. So those are two modes of escape. However, there is a third mode of escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, which is by far and away the most important. It will be by a landslide the dominant form of escape that we will look at in this video series, and it will be the one which will be with you from white belt to black belt as you make your journey down the Jiu-Jitsu road. And this is the form of escape where I put my opponent back into my guard. This is uncommon amongst most grappling sports. Okay, most grappling sports, you cannot escape to your back. You can't just put your back on the ground and call that an escape. Only a few grappling arts would count this as an escape at all. Jiu-Jitsu is definitely one of them. The overwhelming majority of escapes in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu are escapes back to the guard position. We're defining guard as any situation where my legs entangle my opponent's body. Okay, I could entangle his legs, I could entangle his waist, I can entangle his arms, etc., etc. If my legs, even a part of my legs, is between myself, my upper body, and my opponent's upper body, you've got him in some kind of guard, and that would count as an escape. Okay, so say for example, if I'm being pinned across side, in situations like this, if I'm able to create some kind of distance between myself and my opponent and bring my legs back between he and I, from a situation like this, we've now successfully escaped. Why? Because we brought our legs back as a barrier between my upper body and his upper body. As long as my legs are that barrier between his torso and my torso, you have your opponent in guard, everything is fine. It doesn't matter if your back is flat on the ground or what have you. This third mode of escape, the use of your legs as a barrier between his upper body and yours, the so-called guard position and the many variations of guard position, is by far the most dominant form of escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. It is the one you will have to invest most of your time in and most of your study. And it is the one which I will spend the overwhelming majority of our time teaching escapes in this mode. So even though there are 3 modes of escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu, as a beginner, the best investment you can make is to invest most of your time in the skill of getting your legs back between you and your opponent and working to escape to guard position. Now, I want to start you off with a very important consideration, which I've never actually seen taught, but I'm going to make this a big theme of our video. You hear me talking about this so much, you'll get sick of it, I'm sure. This is the distinction between a minimal escape and a positive escape. Everything I'm going to do in this video is going to be to push you towards what I call positive escapes and to shy away from the idea of minimal escapes. What do I mean by this? Well, we've already defined the idea of what constitutes an escape in the sport of Jiu-Jitsu. The most common form of escape by far is some kind of leg entanglement, where I take my legs and somehow get them between me and my opponent's upper body. Now, this can be done to greater or lesser degrees. This is a very important insight. Sometimes you can just catch an opponent with a foot and technically you've escaped. Okay, so for example, let's say I'm being pinned across side by Matteo, and let's say that in the heat of the moment, I kind of bring a leg in and I bring a foot over and I've kind of got Mateus back in a sort of half guard. It's kind of there. But at the same time, Mateus is bearing down on me and his foot is almost coming out. He's fighting to free his foot. And I've got a minimal control. I'm just down here on a foot. Technically, I have escaped. I did put him back in some kind of guard. My legs have entangled his legs to some degree. And technically, I did get out of a pin. Okay? I got out technically. But realistically, do you think I could attack my opponent from there? Do you think I've done something positive? Do you think I've done something where Mateus feels threatened by what I've done? Absolutely not. I've just done the minimum requirement to get out of a pin. That's okay. It's not wrong what you've done, but it's not really desirable. Everything you want to do with your pin escapes is to go to a positive form of escape, where at the completion of the escape, you are in a position to attack your opponent from bottom position. That's what I call a positive escape. If you escape in a way where at the completion of the escape, you're ready to attack, you've done something positive. You're playing a positive game. And a positive game is one where I can take the fight to the opponent, where you can display an offensive spirit. I want to build in you a sense where you see defense as a precursor to offense rather than just a means of getting out. Okay? Minimalist thinkers just think about just doing the minimum work required to get out of a pin. Okay? That's not the long-term development you want to work on. Every time you get out of a pin, You want to be able to renew the attack. So a positive escape example might be something like this. My opponent has me in place, and from here we shift our body out and we line up with our training partner's body and we get a good grip and we move our opponent's body. From here, I have a positive grip on my training partner. Okay, if he goes to pull away from me, it won't be easy. If he goes to yank his arm away from me, it won't be easy. And from here, there's a host of various forms of offense which I could engage in. So I didn't just escape from Mateus's side pin. I escaped and I put myself in a position where I could control my opponent's movement in directions that lead towards submission. In other words, at the completion of the escape, I can play a positive game of offense. That's the goal that you want. Don't be satisfied with just doing the minimum required to get tangled up with your opponent's body. That's a losing gambit in the long run. Okay, you'll never develop a sense of offense and the spirit of offense, which is the signature of good attacking jiu-jitsu. The idea is I want you to become defensively strong so that in the long run, you can become offensively strong. And that means there must be a drive towards positive escapes. Don't just be satisfied with hooking your legs into your opponent and holding on for dear life. That's not the idea. The idea is to get out of a bad position and put yourself in a situation where you can play a positive attacking game and control your opponent's body movement with offense from bottom. That's positive escapes. That's the direction I want you going in this video.